Hey guys, this is John. I'm playing Racketeer in the 15-minute pool on ICC. This player is rated 1869. I'm starting with knight f3 on move 1. Let's check their stats. So they have a peak rating of 1930, 17 wins, 14 losses in the pool. I just recorded a game prior to this, but unfortunately the audio was not working. So it was just me playing, and the game was instructive, but I'm probably not going to post it because there's not much to be gained with zero audio. All right, so black plays c5. I think I'm just going to castle here and stay flexible. I got home from Las Vegas a couple days ago, just in time for the new year. Hope everyone's having a great 2016 so far. I'm going to play c4, and if white takes the pawn, I'll go queen a4. Sorry in advance if I sound a little hoarse. I had to withdraw from the North American Open after 4 rounds due to a stomach bug that I caught. But I've also came down with a little bit of a cold. Just my luck, right? And I've been battling that for the past couple days. I have not had great luck health-wise in recent months. I got sick right before Millionaire Chess in October, and I wasn't able to make that tournament at all. Had to pull out of the North American Open just a few days ago, and now I am trying to stave off this cold right before I go to a tournament in Texas. My next tournament will be the, I don't know if it has a name actually. It's just a GM Norn round robin in Brownsville, Texas, which is way South Texas, almost right at the Mexican border. And I think the average FIDE rating of that tournament will be about 2450. There's 10 players. So you play everyone once. And I'll be gunning for a GM norm. Hopefully I can put in a good performance there. And I think after that tournament, I'll probably take a break for at least a month or two from big tournaments and plan out what else I want to play in the first half of 2016 here. All right, so Racketeer plays bishop e6. We're in a Tarrasch Defense. But bishop e6 is not the main move. Usually black is playing bishop e7 instead. So I think I'll just play knight c3, just make a developing move. Sometimes black plays bishop e6 if they're concerned about defending d5. But often it can constitute a waste of a tempo because had black played bishop e7, I was not going to play to win d5 anyways. So I question whether bishop e6 is necessary. If black goes bishop e7 or bishop d6 now, I'll want to figure out what to do because maybe I can make use of my lead in development. So let's say bishop e7, maybe I can take on c5 and then play something like knight g5 and go after the bishop, or maybe play bishop g5. Okay, so they're taking. Let's recapture. So now I'm hitting the bishop on e6. That must help to some degree. All right, and bishop c5 attacking the knight. So I'm tempted to play knight takes e6, f takes e6, and then e4. And open the position. I think after d takes e4, knight takes e4, let's say queen takes d1, rook takes d1, I must be a bit better. Although, I don't know, that may not be terrible for black. So knight takes e6 is one option. What else could we do here? We could play knight takes c6 if we want to give black hanging pawns. The hanging pawn structure in the center. I could play knight b3 and attack the bishop and hit this pawn on d5. If knight b3, bishop e7, maybe bishop g5. Well, that doesn't look too terrifying. I think black could just castle because if I were to trade on f6, b2 would be hanging should my knight on c3 move. Taking on c6 and then playing e4 also is playable. So just pausing because this is the first truly unfamiliar position to me, and I want to make sure I get this correct. It looks like white's at a crossroads. I'm leaning towards knight takes c6 and e4. I think I like that best. Just looks like an easy position to play. Knight takes c6, b takes c6, e4. If they castle, I could push e5 or maybe play bishop g5 instead. It seems like I'm going to come away with some advantage out of this. Whether it's winning a pawn or more likely just a structural advantage. Just don't see much after knight b3, bishop e7. All right, let's try this. And get ready to push. I can also play like queen a4 or something and go after c6, but I think rook c8 deals with all of that pretty easily, so let's do this. And for those of you who are following my tournament in Las Vegas, I was performing at about 25-15 FIDE after 4 rounds. So that was a bummer because I was on a decent performance, even though only 4 rounds had been played. And 2600 is the magic number you need for a GM norm. If you perform at 2600 or higher after 9 rounds, you get a GM norm, provided you have a couple other requirements, but that's the big one. But I've kind of told myself recently that I shouldn't worry too much about achieving norms. I think if you have the standard of play that a grandmaster should, the norms will come of their own accord. So I'm really not too concerned about not making a norm in London, for instance, or missing out on a big opportunity in Las Vegas. I'm more disappointed that I wasn't able to play some quality games and I just couldn't stick in there for the last 5 rounds due to health reasons. Because I just want to get better. I mean, if I get better and improve my play to a level that I think I'm capable of, I know I'll make Grandmaster. It's just a matter of time. And I'm probably not quite there yet, so I gotta improve a bit. So if Racketeer plays d4, I have some interesting decisions. I could play knight a4 and hit the bishop, but I could also maybe play e5. d4, e5, attacking the knight and unleashing the bishop on g2. d4, e5, let's say d takes c3. Okay, well, he's going to take here. I probably don't want to take on d8. I think taking on e4 is smarter. So if I take on d8, that just gives him an excuse to bring his rook over. So yeah, let's simply take this way. If he wants to take on d1, I'm fine with that. My rook will get to come to d1. I could even insert knight takes f6 if I wanted. But now if you look at the queenside structure, I have A and B pawns versus my opponent's A and C. So that should constitute an advantage, all else being equal. If he takes e4, I'll take with a bishop. I did take a look briefly at something like bishop takes e4, bishop takes f2 check, just to make sure that doesn't work for black. The idea would be to try to overload my rook, but I can play king takes f2, so I don't see that working for him. So yeah, let's just take this way. And now c6 is under attack. It's interesting, but it may be in black's best interest just to give this pawn and not get too attached to it. Queen b6 is reasonable, but sometimes when you have a structural weakness like that, it can be best just to let it go and look for active play elsewhere and not get too attached and too obsessed with trying to defend that weakness. Okay, so they're lining up on f2. I was thinking queen f3 would be a good response here. What else could I think about? Maybe queen h5. Queen h5 looks intriguing, actually. Because then they can't castle kingside. They get mated on h7. So queen h5, it also hits the bishop on c5. But it does invite something like bishop c4. Queen h5, bishop c4. What's going on there? Because if my rook moves, then bishop takes f2 is going to be possible. Let's say queen h5, bishop c4, rook d1. Bishop takes f2, check, king g2. Strange position, but somehow I like my attacking chances there. Call me crazy, but I like that position. Bishop d4 maybe at the end. It's speculative. Speculative for white. There's some other cool moves I'm thinking about here, like b4. Because queen takes b4 is not possible due to bishop takes c6 check. So b4, bishop takes b4, and then maybe bishop e3. Just a quick way to try to attack the queen. And then if bishop c5, I have rook b1. Ooh, that looks like fun. If b4, bishop d4, I maybe have bishop takes c6 check. Although queen takes c6, queen takes d4, I've got a lot of light score weaknesses then, don't I? Yeah, I'd have to be careful about that one. b4 is such a cool looking move. I want to play it. But if it's not good, I will have to refrain. What about b4, bishop d4, b5? Bishop takes a1, bishop takes c6 check. Ooh, that is looking juicy. Huh. b4, bishop d4, b5. What if rook d8? Threatening bishop takes f2 check. I guess then I could play bishop takes c6 check. Let's say king f8. Bishop a3 check, king g8. I might have to give up some material then. Yeah, a lot of directions I can pursue here. I would really like to play b4. I very much want to play that move. But I'm not quite sold on it. b4, bishop d4. Bishop takes c6, queen takes d4. Yeah, I'm going to have some problems. Castles, bishop b2, f6. Black has compensation there. I could play simply b4, bishop d4, rook b1. But then there's bishop takes a2, perhaps. Queen c2 is a candidate move. It's kind of a lame one, but I do take aim against h7 in that case. Yeah, let's play that. This is what happens sometimes in chess. Like, you're considering candidate moves. Like, I was looking at queen h5 and b4 for quite a while. They're enterprising, but I didn't fully trust them. And then you wind up playing a move that you didn't even consider for very long. You're like, okay, I'll just play this third move. If I had more time, I would try to maybe make some of the more tactically minded moves like queen h5 or b4 work, but queen c2 looks safe. I'm overprotecting f2, so I'm freeing up my rook. I'm guarding c4. I'm eyeing c5 and also the pawn behind it on c6. That looks all right. I will, by the way, try to post analysis of my first 4 games from Las Vegas. It's going to take me a while because I do have this tournament coming up in a few days. So I would say look for that in the later half of January, possibly into February. But I would like to analyze those games. I had a few pretty interesting ones. I had 2 wins and 2 draws. Both of my wins came with black. One was a Scandi, and one was a game where I faced knight f3 on move 1. With white, I also had a very intriguing draw against FIDE master Sean Vibert in a line that was featured in one of my Blitz games recently. And I used a thing or two I picked up from playing this Blitz game in that game against Vibert. Although it didn't help me. I didn't win the game or anything. Okay, so rook c8. Defending c6, getting the rook out of the way. He still hasn't addressed this weakness on h7, though, so I'm thinking about just playing a developing move like bishop f4 or bishop g5, maybe. Probably bishop f4. This b4 plan is also interesting, but I think just bishop f4 is simple enough. Bring the bishop into the game. Black still can't castle. Maybe h6 should be played. But then I get a chance to play something like rook c1 if I want. Although the bishop could land on d4. He does play h6. Rook c1, bishop d4. I have bishop d6, but maybe c5 then. There's this b4 move again to ponder, but it seems like the time for b4 has passed, maybe. I could go for, let's say, rook d1, castles, and then bishop d6. Just try to swap the bishops and then attack c6. It's kind of lame, though. What about bishop f5? Bishop f5, bishop takes f5, queen takes f5. He can castle. Okay, but I like my play there. Yeah, let's do bishop f5. I like what I'm seeing in that variation. So swapping the light square bishops instead of the dark square bishops. That might be the way to go, because I have certain light square weaknesses now that I've played g3. Whereas my dark squares are pretty well covered. So I think getting that pair of bishops off and keeping the dark square ones is in my best interest. I don't have as much of a direct attack on c6, mind you, but on the whole, I think this bodes better for my long-term chances. If he castles, I get to take on e6, and he's got another weakness. So I predict he'll take on f5. He does. I can't check because he could play bishop back to e6. So let's just recapture now. Now black should definitely castle. The rook on c8 was also hanging, so they need to get their king to safety. I think he just rook ad1. I'm not afraid of the b2 pawn being weak because I have queen takes c5 in reply. I got some pieces towards their king, but something like bishop takes h6 is not working at the moment. If rook ad1, what if black just puts a rook on d8, though, and offers a trade? I do have to keep that in mind. f2 is still weak. I feel like this bishop is going to settle in on d4 soon as well. Huh. Maybe bishop e5? Or rook ad1, and then say put a rook on d8, then bishop e5, which covers d4 and also defends b2. But it invites trades. I think I'm still going to do it, though. Under 5 minutes. Let's just play it. So if, let's say, rook cd8, I'll play bishop e5. And then my queen is helping to cover f2. It's part of the point of that. If bishop d4, I can probably swap everything and still claim a small advantage. Just based on the pawn structure on the queen side. It's pretty thin. Oh, actually, no. That doesn't even work for black because if they played rook cd8, that would work. But if they played rook fd8 and then I played bishop e5, it's important that they cannot play bishop d4 because after a trade and the rook comes to d4, c8 would be hanging. So yeah, if they're going to play rook to d8, they need to use that c rook, I think. So let's say rook cd8, bishop e5, bishop d4, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, rook takes d4, queen takes d4. In that position, white should be a tiny bit better. Okay, he plays bishop d4 straight away, blocking the file and attacking b2. Queen g4 is kind of a tempting move right now, because that would threaten bishop takes h6, and also it's kind of an x-ray on the bishop here. But c5 handles things, I think, for him. He's probably going to go c5 regardless, though. Maybe I should play bishop e5 right now. But then I run into some problems with the pin. No, I don't. All right, I think I'm going to play bishop e5. Yeah, and just try to swap. Otherwise, I'm afraid that after c5, that bishop will be hard to evict from that square. I'm pretty sure I misplayed this somewhere. Maybe starting with queen c2. Somewhere in this range, like move 14 to 19, I played suboptimally and let black coordinate. My position is not bad or anything, but it looks like black is close to equalizing. So if he plays bishop takes b2, I have rook b1. So I don't believe he can do that. So I predict just a trade. Maybe he'll play rook e8 and I can come back to c3 then. Something along those lines. Only problem now is it's basically a blitz game, with white having 2 extra minutes compared to me. Okay, b3 now? Or something else? Yeah, let's play b3 now and just free up our queen a bit. I'm not sure he should have played rook fd8. I feel like rook cd8 is more effective, because now he doesn't really want to initiate the trade, although he could, I suppose, and then play rook d8. A5. Maybe rook c1 now? Or something like king g2? Huh. H4 doesn't do much, I don't think. Queen e4, also not doing much. Okay, let's play king g2. I just want to make a useful move. Can't spend too much time. I feel like he's trying to push these pawns to trade them. I mean, I would as well. He's just going to play this directly. So what if I take? Okay, well, I got to take. So let's not spend any time on that. I mean, tactically, I don't think he can get this pawn back right away. I know I have doubled pawns, but this is not going to be a cakewalk for him to recover. Okay, so I'm going to take here. Takes with the queen. Interesting. So looking for queen d5 perhaps in the future. Okay, what about rook b1 now? Idea being he can't take because of rook b8. That's my idea. A4 seemed a little rushed. I don't think he had to do that. And objectively, he still might be okay, but he is down a pawn. If I can keep my extra pawn, I've got 2 passed pawns on the outside compared to his 1 inside pawn.
Check.
He's going to trade queens. Okay, again, I would not have done that. Okay, because now I can bring my rook up and defend, and I'm going to try to rush my king up to the center. So let's bring this up. Check doesn't do much. So let's just come here. If king d6, I might play rook b7, though. Let's see where he puts that king. I could also try to bring my king all the way over to b3 to help guard the a-pawn, and then free up my rook. Yeah, black has been very eager to get pieces off the board, but you got to be careful when you're doing that not to slip into a worse endgame. He could play rook a6 to try to guard the 6th rank and thereby give his king space to move up to. So if rook a6, king d4, king d6, king c3, something like that. Okay, he's going to do that. I still think I should play rook d4. Or, sorry, king d4. Yeah, let's play that way. If king d6, I could check once if I wanted. But he's going to play king c7, so I don't know if I gain much. I'll probably play king c3. Okay, yep, let's do this. So just trying to bring the king over so my rook can roam freely without fear of losing the a-pawn. He's still got a 2-to-1 time advantage on me. And I will be playing bullet chess very soon. But my position looks good. Okay, now I can go check and then play king b4 and kind of fast track this whole operation. Okay, let's improve this a little bit. Attack the f-pawn. Gotta watch the d-pawn. I don't want his d-pawn becoming too much of an issue. Maybe I should have kept my rook on b6 to support a5, a6, but we'll see. This still looks pretty good. Rook b6. Play d4. Okay, let's play a5 first. If d4, I might give a check on e7, I'm thinking. Just to try to misplace his king a bit. That's still a little tricky, isn't it?
Check.
Okay, now I was thinking here. Can't really defend these pawns. I still got to watch that d-pawn, though, mind you. This is not a walk in the park quite yet. d3. Okay, so now I'm thinking just king back. Give up the a-pawn, but I'm going to take this one with check, and then I'm going to take h6.
Check.
So I'm winning 2 pawns. Yeah, let's take this first, just to get rid of that threat. And then let's bring this over, defend f2. I don't think he can defend this pawn.
Check.
So I believe I'm just going to win it here soon. If h5, I can play rook h6 and get behind it.
Check.
Let's hide our king first and foremost. He has f4. f4 is kind of clever. Okay, but still I'm going to do this. I played this instead of rook g5 because I want to make sure that he can't play h4 and offload it and give me doubled h-pawns. If I had played rook g5, h4 was playable. Okay, now this is a pretty easy win. This is not going to be too much of a challenge, provided I
check.
Stay relatively okay on the clock.
Check.
Let's play h5. Let's bring our king up. Guard against rook g4. 2 connected pawns are almost always enough to win.
Time warning.
Oh, I only have 19 seconds left. I gotta hurry. I'm gonna try to cut off his king real quick. Like so we can push the pawns without fear. He shouldn't have let his king get cut off, but he was losing anyways. All right, let's do this. We're going to make sure that we don't even give up the g-pawn.
Check. Check.
Whoa, that does not work. That's not stalemate.
Check. Check.
We'll just play this super simple.
Check. 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 Checkmate.
Okay, so we get the victory at the end. As usual, I got to give you guys a sweat before I win, if I'm going to win the game. Let's go back and take a look at it. Before I do, I think I'm going to target, when I'm looking at this game, the moves 14 through about 18 or 19, because I was unhappy with that in retrospect. I think right here I have an important decision to make, and I chose Queen C2, but it didn't work out to my great satisfaction. I don't think I got a big advantage out of that. So let's see. So I was able to move order him into Tarrasch, which I get the sense that black does not play normally, because after d4 they played bishop e6, which is, as I described, not the main move. Usually bishop e7 is preferred. So bishop e6, I just played knight c3. Now they took and played bishop c5. I feel like I should be better in some way here, but again, I don't know that I chose the best route. Here I took on c6, but I was speculating about this line too. I think I didn't like in this line the fact that the f-file was open and maybe could be used to attack f2. For instance, with a line like this, and now castles. But looking at it now, maybe I don't have to be concerned about that. Bishop f4 develops and covers the f-file. g5, bishop e3, and the computer still likes white, even though I have to accept an isolated e-pawn. Probably because my bishop on e4 is pretty strong. And I'll have some threats on c6/b7. Okay, so that's one alternative. Knight takes e6 followed by e4. I would like to open the position, though, because I am ahead in development. My king is safe. Black's is not. Black has not castled yet. So it makes sense to look for things to open the position. And pawn breaks, offering trades of pawns, are the primary method for opening a position. Another candidate move here was knight b3, hitting the bishop and also uncovering attacks on d5, but I just didn't see much after bishop e7. In these positions, it's important that after like bishop g5 and then taking on f6, that white does not win a pawn, because should I do this, let's say, even if they take, or let's just say right here, they can take on b2. b2 is loose. So blindly playing bishop g5 takes f6 is not going to cut it. So I took on c6 and then went for e4. Yeah, the computer's not impressed. Black took, but castling might be even better. Just letting me take here, taking with the knight. And it's the same pawn structure as in the game, but apparently black's activity is going to compensate for that. The computer is reading dead equal. So it likes black's active pieces, and these pawns do beget open lines. So the open B file, for instance. So it's not all bad for black. Yeah, I think in retrospect, I should have taken on e6 and then played e4. And that attack that could happen on f2 is not that big of a deal for white. As played, so after this, knight takes, bishop takes, queen b6. What should I do? There's some really tempting stuff. Like queen h5 was the first move I thought about, I think. Developing and stopping black from castling because they walk right into checkmate. I wasn't sure about bishop c4, though. Queen e5. Okay. Because I was thinking bishop c4 would attack f1, and then if the rook is forced away, he can take here. Even this is not so clear, but I didn't see that I had queen e5. Hitting the queen and also here. If this, can I play bishop h6? Yep, I can. It's a nifty move. Attacking g7. And it's important that they can't take because I take on h8. Yeah, and I would assume if this, I can even just come back here. Okay. And if bishop takes e3, check. here, and take here.
Check.
And black's getting killed. Okay, so queen h5 is probably a better move than what I gave it credit for. b4 was nifty looking. I really wanted to play this move. Because if queen takes b4, there's
check.
Bishop takes c6 check, forking the king and the rook. And if bishop takes b4, I think rook b1 should be unpleasant, with the idea of a3, or rook takes b4 potentially. There's even moves like bishop e3 I would have thought about. But I couldn't find a solution to bishop d4. Simply attacking the rook on a1. And I saw the line bishop takes c6, queen takes c6, queen takes d4, castles, whereupon white is up a pawn. But look at that big hole on g2, that light square weakness. Black is threatening bishop h3, hitting the rook and threatening queen g2 mate. And I could do this and threaten a mate of my own, and then play something like, I don't know, I think I thought about like rook fc1 or something, but it seems like I'm really pushing my luck here up a pawn. I'm going to great lengths just to win one pawn, and the weaknesses on the king side are chronic. They're not going to go away instantly. So I'm a long way from being able to convert my pawn on the queen side. And on top of all that, it's opposite color bishops. So high drawing tendencies in an endgame for black. So that line wasn't convincing. Yeah, I looked at some weird stuff here too, like what if I played b5, I think was a move I thought about. But I just don't trust it. I think I was looking at rook d8 in reply, but castling is probably even better. Castle's queenside is a good move the computer suggests, because now bishop takes a1 and bishop takes f2 are threatened. The idea of b5, by the way, is if take here, then like it's bishop takes c6 check in. And if, say, king here, I have a choice between taking here or maybe even checking and picking up the bishop on a1, or checking and then taking on a8. But yeah, that castle's queenside move seems to deal with the problem nicely. So ultimately I chose queen c2 because this attacks c5 and c6 and also covered some potentially weak points. The computer seems to like it, so maybe that's okay. He played rook c8. Perhaps bishop f4 was a bit nonchalant. The computer also seems to think that's okay. Yeah, maybe rook e1 is more purposeful, because for the moment, black cannot castle without losing the h7 pawn. So rook e1 lining up on the e file and threatening stuff like bishop f5 could be useful. Yeah, I played bishop f4 a little quick because it looks so natural just getting the bishop out, but I can fully believe that rook e1 is a more direct move. Yeah, because then if h6, he's just walking into this move. Castles, take here, take here. Now there's a triple threat on f2, so I'd have to cover that with bishop e3. But compared to the game, black has an extra weakness, that pawn on e6. So I would much prefer this to happen versus just playing against the a and the c pawns. So bishop f4, black played h6. And here I played bishop f5, also not best. Okay, rook c1. Oh, really? I had just rook c1 followed by bishop takes c6. I don't know why I didn't see that. Because rook c1, the bishop on c5 is attacked twice, so it has to move. And this bishop is defended by queen and rook, so I am picking up a pawn. There is some pin issues here, but it does look like a clean pawn. Queen a4, kind of eyeing this and getting out of the pin. Yeah, and his king is in the center. Stuff like queen a3 check is threatened. Huh. Okay, so rook c1 was good here if I'm going to play this. Basically, I saw that black was going to castle next move, so I tried to do something sort of threatening, and I decided that swapping the light square bishops would be good in view of my light square weaknesses, but it's just not direct enough. And rook c1 is a more precise way to highlight my lead in development. This is also a funny move the engine is proposing, bishop h7, trying to stop black from castling altogether. It's kind of a hard move to consider. Yeah, of the two, I like rook ac1 more. This looks a little loose to me. I think as played, after bishop f5 and this trade and castling, black should be fine. They might be nominally worse, but yeah, it's not much I'm working with. Now it's boiled down mainly to this structure. So I played rook d1. Again, black cannot play queen takes b2 with the bishop hanging on c5. But bishop d4 was a good reply. Now I think if I don't hurry, black's going to play c5, and they might have a very annoying bishop anchored in the center. So hence why I played bishop e5. Yeah, it's safe to say rook a d1 was a mistake as well. That's not an accurate move. Maybe bishop e5 right away is more flexible. Getting on this diagonal before black does. And then, okay, yeah, the engine thinks I enjoy a small advantage. Still not much, but more so than after rook d1. So I would say in this sequence, the move bishop f4 was not accurate. Rook e1 was more to the point. And also rook a d1 was a bit too much of an autopilot move. Bishop e5 would have been better. So we swapped. Yeah, c5 was also possible for black. They want to try to anchor the bishop and get a structure like this. Where again, even though black has weaknesses, their activity probably makes up for it. They have the c-file, they have an attack on b2. Black can be doing just fine here if they play actively. So this occurred, and they played rook fd8. I thought that was a slight mistake. I felt like if they're going to put a rook on d8, it makes more sense to do this one so they can come here and attack the queen. So here, and I played b3, a5, king g2. I'm just trying to improve my position. I know there's not much to be said for white's advantage here, so I'm just looking for moves that could be useful in the long run. And I think getting the king off of this diagonal and just bringing it a little closer to the action makes sense. That said, it might not be the best move. Rook fe1 is better. Hard to say, though. I've got 3 minutes left, so I was trying to be practical. Then he played a4 straight away. I questioned that move because it didn't seem to me that black could get the pawn back right away, but the computer seems to think it's okay. Let's find out why. So I took... He went rook a8. So queen b4 attacks the pawn. Yeah, maybe that is the way to go. If a5, having my queen defend it, there's c5 cutting the coordination. And black may just recover that pawn. Huh. Yeah, if black can follow it up precisely and regain the pawn without any headaches, then I like a4. And that seems to be the case after taking queen b4. As played, though, black never managed to regain that pawn. And even though it's discounted because I have doubled pawns, black has to watch out because any endgame is going to be an issue for them. So after the imprecise rook a8, I traded and then found rook b1. Idea being if rook takes a4, I have rook b8. And they lose their queen. So this was a timely move. Activating the rook with a clear idea and indirectly defending the a-pawn.
Check.
Now they traded queen d5. I really questioned that move because I thought black should keep the queens on and avoid this rook ending.
Check.
Because usually when you're the one who has the inside pass pawn, you're going to have worse chances in the endgame. Like this a-pawn is harder to stop for black than the d-pawn is to stop for me. Like I can easily get my king in front of that. Black can't easily get their king in front of the a-pawn. That's time consuming and they have to switch wings with their king. So I'm surprised that the computer likes just going for this endgame right away. Huh. I don't know, it seems like something like g6 might make sense. Or it is a little uncomfortable for black, I guess. Maybe something like queen d2. Although
Check.
Is this queen endgame?
Check.
Bad for them too. Probably. This queen ending's probably also tough because my a-pawn will still be strong. Queen
Check.
d1 check. King g8. Queen e4 centralizing, attacking this. Holding a4, stopping queen d5. Yeah, even this looks like torture for black too.
Check.
I would have at least thought a little longer, though, about queen d5. I guess he thought maybe
Check.
20 seconds or so. But it's a big decision to go into this rook endgame. Black's going to have to play accurately if they want any chance to hold this. So now the kings come over. So my plan is to put the king on d4 for starters, attack the pawn on d5. If black's king gets too far over to the queen side, I'm going to do what I did in the game and try to go after their king side pawns with my rook. But I also might play like king c3 to b3 and try to free up the rook in general and not keep the king on d4. So that's what I did in the game. The only problem is I lose sight of the d pawn a little bit when I execute this plan. Not sure black should be playing stuff like g6. Actually, I don't like rook a5 altogether. I thought maybe rook a6 was better. And then after king d4, king d6, and the point is I can't check black on the 6th rank, so their king might be satisfied here. This would be tough to win. I could try for the same thing, but maybe black is just in time. So as played, rook a5. I brought my king up. They played g6.
Check.
Then I gave this check and played king b4. I'm certain I didn't play this perfectly, though. It still may not be winning. It's showing +1, but that's within a drawing range in a rook endgame. The engine says just push the a-pawn. Let's see how that works out. a5, d4, a6, king d5, f3, just waiting. Rook a7, a4, bring up the a-pawn. Rook a8, a5, h5.
Check.
Rook check.
Check.
Check. f3 is useful in that it takes away the e4 square from the black king.
Check.
Yeah, so maybe at some point I can go win the d-pawn. I remember expressing some regret about having played rook b7 because I thought with my rook on b6 I might be supporting a5, a6. So yeah, I probably should push a5 right away. Rook b7, while tempting, attacking the pawn, probably doesn't help me too much. Yeah, so that was probably a miss. I think I should have just pushed here immediately. My king can always come back and help defend against the d-pawn's advance if necessary. This is always acceptable. This is probably winning for white now. So f5, a5, d4.
Check.
I gave a check. And then went rook g7. Okay, but had black played rook c8, cutting off my king.
Check.
Even though I can pick up a couple pawns, yeah, I got to be careful because this d-pawn is going to run pretty swiftly. Like if I take here, d3, I'm sure. And with my king cut off, my rook alone is the piece that's going to have to defend against the pawn's advance. Rook h7, trying to get behind. But king d6 covers.
Check.
And the engine thinks I have to go for a perpetual. Oh no. I just dragged a bishop on the board. That's annoying. Let me get to that position again.
Checkmate.
So we were looking at
Check.
basically this position. Yeah, so had black found rook c8, that would have put me in a tough spot. Because my a-pawn is not quite threatening enough, and this move cuts my king. Yep, it'd be hard to deal with that d-pawn now. The computer thinks draw.
Check.
Based on this sort of deal. Me needing to get into a position with my rook and black being able to deny that,
Check.
but not having enough to play for a win themselves. If king here, I assume same thing. I could play this, trying to get behind the pawn. So, yeah, it looks like a draw. But instead, d3 was played. I brought my king back. They took a5.
Check.
I took here. Take a2. And here I just missed f2 to f4 check, followed by rook takes h6. That's the easiest way to win. Okay.
Check.
So just giving a check and then picking up the pawn and simultaneously guarding h2. Yeah, and eventually we're going to get to two pawns versus none. Two connected pawns versus none, as in the game. I was wondering if king e3, after king e3,
Check.
if there's anything black could do. Yeah, like f4 could be annoying. Because if I take here, there's
Check.
f3. And I can't go to f1 because I get mated on a1. This might still be winning, though.
Check.
If king e3, he can check again on a3. So king here. And if take, there's probably king e3. Yeah, this is more trouble than I would like, though. Also, there's rook a3 check. Yeah, clearly, at this juncture, after rook a2, f4 would have been by far the easiest.
Check.
As played, there might be some tricks black has by pushing f4 and trying to go f3 check.
Check. Check.
Because say that this occurs and I have to take the pawn. Here I'm still up 2 pawns, but they're not connected. And that increases the draw's tendencies. I've had this endgame before, I think in 15 minute. And yeah, black can often draw this if they play correctly. Big difference between having those connected pawns versus the disconnected ones like here.
Check.
I think his last chance for f4 was right here. He played h5, but maybe this is forced. Idea, take,
check.
f3 check, and I can't go to the back rank again for fear of mate. And if here, rook a2 and go after the f2 pawn. Looks like if f4 I can play g4 though, and this pawn will fall and everything is protected for me. Yeah, if h5 I don't even have to take with the pawn.
Check.
I can just go check and pick it up with the rook. Okay, so white is still winning at that point anyways. Yep, and once we get down to this, all I got to do is eventually trade black's f-pawn and make sure that I have 2 connected pawns remaining. And 2 connected pawns are always a win. Well, not always.
Check.
There's a couple fortress exceptions,
check.
But like 98% of the time they're winning. I just came up with that number, but it sounds about right. Yeah, and I brought my king up. Eventually played g4, and to compound his problem, he got his king cut off and couldn't use his king to stop these pawns. But even if his king were in an optimal position, it's still losing.
Check. Checkmate.
And then we didn't flag, fortunately. Okay, so I think black had good chances after they were able to castle and swap some stuff. I still get the sense that they simplified too quickly. If not strictly a mistake, I feel like their mindset was that their best chance to draw was to trade down. And I'm not convinced that that was necessary. Like, to me, a5, a4 looks rushed. Had they had in mind queen b4, I probably would not be saying that. But as played, they didn't regain the pawn ever. And even this queen d5 move, the computer thinks it's best, but I just think that rook endgame is super simple to play. But I could have played this better myself. Probably starting with knight takes e6 in the beginning, followed by e4, rather than knight takes c6 and e4. And also, bishop f4 was inaccurate. Should have played rook e1, I believe. And especially bishop f5 right here. I had a chance for rook ac1 and going to win the c6 pawn, and I didn't take it. I didn't see it. And I think after this, black should be active enough to draw, despite the slight structural deficit. Their activity is significant, so. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry again for the hoarse voice. Hopefully I get better in the next couple days. And once again, Happy New Year to everyone. Talk to you guys later. Bye.